Marco Simoncelli raced in the other direction until 2006. It's now a clockwise 16-corner venue. Great racing this weekend throughout its 4.2-kilometre distance, but particularly at its three main overtaking hotspots. Turn 1, easy to get it wrong here. The start-finish straight measures only 510 metres, but speeds nonetheless reach over 260 kilometres per hour before the heaviest braking zone on the circuit. The famous La Quercia hairpin was Alvaro Bautista's favoured passing place yesterday, riders carrying their speed off turn 6 and through the high-speed turn 7 kink. He made his race-winning move at turn 11 Curvone. From there, speeds gradually drop through a series of decreasing radius corners towards the slowest on the circuit, turn 14. Each of the two races so far this weekend has provided us with a new lap record for Alvaro Bautista in race 1 and then Toprak Razgatlioglu in the superpole race this morning, a 1 minute 33.722. Quite astonishing pace. Beaten in Misano after a hat-trick of pole, race win and fastest lap in race 1, Alvaro Bautista succumbed to Toprak Razgatlioglu in this morning's Tissot Superpole race, Toprak's first win of the season. Over the 21-lap distance in race 1, Bautista was utterly untouchable. And although he hasn't had 2 wins in a single weekend since Sunday in Aragon, he is odds-on favourite here. Steve English alongside me, Ray and Bautista with 5 victories apiece. Razgatlioglu on just 1 with a lot of catching up to do. Talk us through our favourites then.
Toprak has a lot of work to do to catch up on, but you could see the relief for the Yamaha team after he claimed that first race victory this season. They know that there's a monkey off their back now after what we saw in the Superpole race. But they'll also know Alvaro Bautista is your clear favourite in this race. We saw in yesterday's proceedings, he was able to manage his tyre really well. He could get to the front and then break away from Jonathan Rea. So for Alvaro Bautista, he's the rider with the target on his back. Ray and Razgatlioglu, they've got to find a way to get in front of him.
Alvaro Bautista, the highest scorer of this weekend so far, with victory in race 1 and a second position in the Superpole race, continuing his run of never having been off the podium in any of the races in 2022 thus far. That consistency is what's seen him to a 24-point championship lead. But his colours were lowered earlier on today by Toprak Razgatlioglu, the race victor in the Tissot Superpole race, his first win of the 2022 campaign and his title defence. Alvaro Bautista coming home in second, again beats Jonathan Rea to extend his championship lead. It was 22 points overnight, it's now 24. Third position going the way of Jonathan Rea, who will therefore complete the front row of the grid for race 2 this afternoon. Xavi Vierge, with his best result yet, lines up on row number 2 alongside his Honda teammate Iker Lecuona and Andrea Locatelli. Important changes further back down the order. Michael Ruben Rinaldi, who was up on the second row of the grid after the Superpole session, will now start from the 4th row. He tumbled back to 10th in the Superpole race. Scott Redding started 9th, but he finished in 11th. The two riders to move forward at their expense onto the 3rd row of the grid. Axel Bassani claiming 7th place. He had a great race 1, so he'll be optimistic for this afternoon. And Garrett Gerloff, who has been 8th and 9th in his 2 race results. He only qualified down in 11th. So important progress for both Bassani from 10th and Gerloff from 11th. They're up onto the 3rd row of the grid and within striking distance. And there are a whole host of contenders, at least for 4th position, if not to try and join that scrap up at the head of the field.
Well, 4th position's the interesting story after the Superpole race with the 2 Hondas, Xavi Vierge and Iker Lecuona 4th and 5th. They used the Q tyre, the softest tyre available. They were one of the few riders out there to gamble for it, and it really paid off. They've got a 2nd row grid start.
Obviously that Q tyre is not available in feature-length races, even if they wanted to try and use it, which over the course of 21 laps and with the heat that we have wouldn't be an option anyway. Although it must be said that the X tyre initially was brought in just to do the 10-lap distance. They managed to stretch that out over time as well.
Yeah, it was funny because when the X tyre came in, I was just talking about this with a journalist up in the media centre before the break, and they were saying, I remember when the X tyre came in, everyone said you'd never be able to use that for a Superpole race, it'll be too soft. Now we use it for feature length races. Now that we've seen that the Q tyre can work in these conditions, for riders in that superpole race. You're certainly going to see a lot of riders try and take a gamble on it in future rounds.
Toprak Razgatlioglu doing his level best to keep cool by the looks of things as we prepare to go out on track for race 2. Track temperatures nice and high, air temperature very high. A week that started with rain and thunderstorms on Wednesday night and wet weather on Thursday, coming good as the weekend has gone on. Much like Toprak Razgatlioglu with his mechanical problems in race 1 that saw him scoreless for the second time this season, bouncing back to victory earlier on today.
Yeah, and you can see there that Toprak really was struggling to get the bike stopped yesterday. That was the big area of improvement for him in this race. One of the key areas in that obviously is the electronics, but also the tyre choice as well. And the new development tyres from Pirelli, that also changes the balance of the bike and what you need from that package. Toprak went back this morning to using the standard tyre, and he looked an awful lot more comfortable out there.
No matter how many times I review this move, it is stunning. It's going to be even better from onboard.
Yeah, this move is really what you have to do through this opening sector. I talked to Jonathan Ray actually about it on Thursday or Friday, and he said that through turn 1 you can set the move up for turn 3, or you can then sacrifice different areas and try and make the move through turn 2. You saw how early Toprak got in the gas compared to Ray on the gap between turn 1 and turn 2. He was focusing solely on making that move. It's not the fastest way to go around, but a race isn't always about being fast, it's about track position.
Yes, Toprak though was able to be fast from there on in, set a new lap record on lap 5 as he built a gap. At that stage it was 2.8 seconds, and a gap which he could manage from there on into the finish, mainly because Bautista and Ray, the top 2 men in the championship standings, were scrapping it out amongst themselves for second.
Yeah, we saw that with Ray and Bautista, that Toprak was able to break away from them, open up a gap of 2.5-3 seconds at one stage, but that was because of the infighting between the two riders, first and second in the championship. They knew Toprak was going away. Ray wanted to do everything he could to stay in front of Bautista, just didn't have the bike underneath him.
No, but the consolation for Jonathan Ray is that because he held up Alvaro Bautista for so long, the number 19 couldn't haul in Toprak Razgatlioglu. So in the end, Ray scrapping for all he was worth against Bautista does have a benefit to him. He only loses 2 points despite another defeat at the hands of Bautista in the superpole race.
Yeah, and the one thing for Ray is that he knows that it's all about damage limitation at some rounds, and this was the most difficult round for him last year. He's a lot more competitive here in Misano than he was 12 months ago. That's the big positive to take, but he also knows this is a tough one. He'll feel pretty confident though that the next round at Donington Park, his home round, that's going to be favouring the Kawasaki a lot more.
Yes, Jonathan Ray hadn't left Misano without a race victory since he started with the Kawasaki team, and Kawasaki has been largely the dominant force around Misano in recent years, barring 2021, and so far barring 2022 as well.
I think you said in the superpole session they had 9 consecutive poles. That's always a pretty good indication of what bike's the fastest around a racetrack.
And it wasn't pole position for Jonathan Ray this time around. Alvaro Bautista, the fastest man on Saturday, and he was the fastest man throughout Saturday. The question is whether he can rediscover that magic touch on Sunday afternoon. Jonathan Ray himself said after race 1 yesterday he'd be looking at a couple of different things for today.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things he's going to look at is tyre selection. And he's tried both new development tyres from Pirelli, hasn't felt happy with either of them, so you'd imagine he'll go back to the standard tyre, the one that we've used since Misano last year.
Yes, back to basics for Jonathan Ray. Alvaro Bautista leads your championship standings, 195 points to his name, a podium finisher in each of the races thus far in 2022, a first and a second position this weekend so far. Couldn't think about Toprak Razgatlioglu really while Jonathan Ray was beating him up, and that's exactly what was happening. Bautista repeatedly coming through and Jonathan Ray just slinging it down the inside to try and halt the progress of Bautista as much as was possible.
Yeah, for Jonathan Ray, he's just looking to constantly attack back, and that's what we saw in the opening race of the day. We saw that anytime costs you a lot of time, but that's what you need to do. And in yesterday's race we saw that where Bautista made his move into turn 11, that really cost Ray momentum, and it meant that Bautista was able to open up a few tenths of a second. And it was interesting talking to some people this morning about that. One of the key things they said was Misano is such a short lap around here, it's 95 seconds long, that every lap you're 1-2 tenths of a second really does make a big difference, and that means that it's very difficult to make up ground on anyone once you've given up half a second on them.
A year to the day since Michael Ruben Rinaldi took his first race victory with the Ducati factory team right here in Misano, of course, the dominant force of the 2021 Pirelli Emilia-Romagna round. He looked good value again in race 1 yesterday for 3rd position, but could only manage 10th in the superpole race earlier on today. Fancy he's going to be fired up for a big result result now this afternoon.
Yeah, definitely for Rinaldi, this morning's race would have been a big disappointment for him. And one of the things that's interesting with Michael is that obviously we're used to seeing him use the softest tyre, we're used to seeing him manage his tyre really well. He's used it at different occasions in the past where he hasn't felt that he could use the X tyre and he's had to use a harder tyre. I think maybe this morning was one of those situations where he felt that he had just too much spin out there and it was just causing his problem. But for Rinaldi, we're into a new race now, different set of circumstances. 21 laps is a very different battle out there.
Yes, he'll be targeting a repeat of race 1. He was a little bit fortunate to get up onto the podium with Toprak Razgatlioglu's mechanical retirement, of course, as we've said. But nonetheless, first podium of the season. A relief for him and a great start to this weekend as far as Ducati are concerned. 1 and 3 in race 1, and Bautista with another decent haul, extending his championship lead in the superpole race this morning.
Yeah, 24 points is the advantage now, and it is starting to extend out, but it's also worth remembering that the big difference between Jonathan Rea and Alvaro Bautista this season was that Rea had that crash with Toprak in Assen, and obviously that took away a big haul of points for him when Bautista was able to win.
Yes, take away the points scored in Assen, and there would be just 1 point between Jonathan Rea and Alvaro Bautista, and it would be Rea who would be leading. So he certainly had the consistency and the pace to go with Bautista, but in race 2 this afternoon it could well be a different story, because he certainly didn't have the answer for Bautista in the final third of the race here yesterday.
Yeah, and I think during the course of that race we did see that Jonathan probably just kept his powder dry as well, didn't want to really put it all out on the line and make sure that everyone was aware of what he could do.
Yes, so a little bit of an uncertainty as far as Ducati are concerned. What kind of pace could Jonathan Rea have run in that final third once he rather surrendered himself to the mercies of Alvaro Bautista, and he stormed away, of course, for the 25 championship points. A winner in race 2 in Aragon, in race 2 in Assen, race 1 in Estoril, and of course race 1 here yesterday. As far as feature length victories are concerned for Alvaro Bautista, he's had plenty of those. Riders on the second row of the grid, we've already spoken about the Hondas and their fortunes in the superpole race, aided by the correct gamble by the looks of things, on the evidence of them storming through to 4th and 5th position finishes when they were only 7th and 9th in the feature length races. They may well come under threat right from the start of this one. We have seen Vierge and Lecuona on occasion able to defend position, but you fancy that the likes of Lowe's, Bassani, Rinaldi should all be fighting through in those opening laps.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say the Q tyre gave a big advantage to Honda in the superpole race, so you would expect Locatelli, Bassani, Lowe's, Gerloff, Rinaldi, they're going to be in that fight right from the outset. But I think as well it's worth saying that the Honda does look much improved. It's been fast everywhere we've gone so far this season. That's why we've got Lecuona up there 5th in the World Championship at this stage. That's a really good indication of where Honda's at.
Yes, I said yesterday, in the last 5 years, best championship result has been Alvaro Bautista's, and he's not managed anything like the 5th place that Iker Lecuona currently occupies, although he's not a significant margin ahead of the likes of Michael Ruben Rinaldi and Alex Lowe's, who will hope to catch him up. He is 25 points ahead of teammate Xavi Vierge, but Vierge has had the measure of him so far, so a good little rivalry within that team as well.
Yeah, it really is, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out all the way through the season. I think the expectation is that Lecuona is going to be the top rider for Honda, but Xavi Vierge has shown that on his day he's really strong in the Moto2 class. His problem was always consistency. He'd have one great result and then maybe a couple of poor results. Maybe on a superbike he's able to be a lot more consistent. That's one of the big question marks coming into this season, but certainly as it is, Vierge with that 4th place finish really was impressive.
Yes, I say it is certainly Vierge who's had the measure over Lecuona this weekend, even if not in the championship standings.
You can see just how busy it is down on the grid there. I don't think we need a cameraman. I think we need a drone down there to be able to get through everyone.
Yes, through them or above them perhaps, to find a way to this man, Toprak Razgatlioglu, who is your pole sitter for race 2. First time he's been the pole sitter for race 2 this season, of course. His first race victory of the campaign coming in the Tissot Superpole race. A perfect way to bounce back from a retirement here yesterday afternoon, and more frustrating problems for Yamaha, similar to last year when it was only that misfortune that cost Razgatlioglu an even bigger victory in the championship.
Yeah, exactly, and I think for Toprak that's where it becomes really important to have it now, where he's able to really back up what happened in the superpole race with a good result now. Maybe try and bring the fight to Bautista for as long as he can, but certainly it looked like in race 1 he didn't quite have the answers.
Alvaro Bautista start scorer this weekend so far. He qualified on pole, he took the victory in race 1 and also set the fastest lap over that 21 lap distance. He is your favourite for race 2 this afternoon, I would suggest.
Yeah, undoubtedly he's your odds-on favourite, and really to find someone that's going to be able to beat him for straight up pace, you're not going to find it, but to find someone that's going to out-battle him, you've got Razgatlioglu and Ray.
Yes, and how many times have those two gone head-to-head as well? It will be Jonathan Ray who completes the front row of the grid. A second and a third so far this weekend. He went winless here in Misano a year ago. Is he going to leave again? A circuit that he's won at so many times before, winless in 2022.
Looks like the blinkers are on for Jonathan down on the grid as well. He's trying to focus on just himself. He doesn't want to think about the other riders out there right now, and for him, going winless here at Misano 2 years in a row really would be a surprise. This is a track where he's had so much success in the past, 8 wins.
Yes, and joint record as well for podium finishes here in Misano for Jonathan Ray. Toprak Razgatlioglu then signs the camera lens, the typical gesture after claiming that top spot in the Superpole race earlier on today. So he is also the Tissot Superpole award leader he's had on today.
Yeah, and that's where it's going to be great to see now. Do the floodgates open for Toprak now, having had that race victory?
Second row of the grid is with Xavi Vierge, Iker Lecuona and Andrea Locatelli. Vierge, who was 7th in the Superpole session yesterday, 7th in race 1 as well, made important strides forward in the Superpole race with a 4th position, his best to date in the Superbike World Championship, and no doubt he will be looking for more as we go on through this campaign. He lines up alongside his team partner Iker Lecuona and Andrea Locatelli on the second row. This is Locatelli to 6th places for him. He was also 6th in the Superpole rate in the Superpole session, so you know where you might be able to expect him to finish.
Yeah, I think the goal, obviously enough for Locatelli, is always to be the next best rider out there. Yamaha, Ducati, Kawasaki have their races where you can, and obviously there's not too many opportunities this season considering the form that we've seen from everyone. Locatelli, if he's able to come away with another top 6, it's a really good result. Andrea
Locatelli then currently sits 4th in the World Championship ahead of Iker Lecuona, who leads his teammate Xavi Vierge by 25 points. But Vierge has twice beaten Lecuona so far this weekend. I think we can hear from Vierge now.
Yes, Xavi Vierge, one of your best weekends so far, a brilliant Superpole. You must be very confident heading into this race.
Yes, we make a really good job from yesterday. This morning already on the warm-up I feel a bit better. And we make, like you say, a really strong Superpole race. And we'll see now. It will be a difficult race. It's really, really hot. So we'll try to make a good start and be with the fast guys until then.
Thanks. Good luck, Xavi.
Thank you.
Moving on with the grid then, we've caught up with Axel Bassani, who will be starting from P7. He qualified only in 10th position for race 1, but fought his way through nicely to 4th position in that one. He's going to be another threat over the feature length distance. Was able to manage his tyres well yesterday and get up onto the 3rd row of the grid for race 2 with a 7th position finish in the Tissot Superpole race this morning. Alex Lowes, who was 8th position, lining up 8th position on the grid. He was 4th position in the Superpole session, 5th position in race 1 and 8th in that Superpole session this morning. Well, a nice moment for the Italian fans here at the lone visit to Italy of this 2022 campaign. The Pirelli Emilia-Romagna round official attendance figures for this weekend, 65,825. There have been an awful lot of people packing out the paddock as well as the grid, and no doubt they will be men, the Ducati representatives, as well as the home faithful Michael Ruben Rinaldi, who's from just down the road really on the coast in Rimini.
Yeah, an impressive amount of improv there from the guitarist, almost the same as what you get when Toprak and Johnny are out on track battling with one another, but certainly for the riders now, they get to focus up now on the job at hand. They've only got less than 10 minutes until the start.
Right, let's try and pick up the pieces on the grid. Row number 3, Axel Bassani, Alex Lowe's, we've already seen them, and this is Garrett Gerloff. He'll be lining up in 9th, 11th position in the Superpole session yesterday. Him really was able to make up a few positions, particularly in the latter stages, came through for 8th in race 1. Importantly, snagged 9th position in the Tissot Superpole race, which gives him a slot on the 3rd row of the grid for race 2 this afternoon. Home man Michael Ruben Rinaldi, as I said, he will be much supported as far as those numbers in the grandstand are concerned. Decent job on the 2nd row of the grid in the Superpole session. Fought his way up to 3rd, obviously beneficiary of Toprak Razgatlioglu's race 1 retirement for his first podium of the campaign. Yeah,
an important step though to get onto the podium as well for Rinaldi, give himself a little bit of momentum, give himself a bit of a lift, and then hopefully in this feature length race able to come through from that 10th on the grid. It's going to be difficult for him though, but you'd certainly think that the goal for him has to be that top 5 again.
Yes, we know that Rinaldi is a favourite at this circuit, but it's also a favourite of his after his double victory here in 2021, 2 wins and a 2nd place. He was top scorer at the Emilia-Romagna round in 2021. Alongside him on row number 4 will be Scott Redding and Loris Baz. This is Iker Lecuona, who we missed on our way through, and he finished 8th in the Superpole session yesterday. 9th position in the race 1 yesterday. Really struggled by comparison with Xavi Vierge, and then scored a 5th position in the Tissot Superpole race this morning to get himself up onto the 2nd row of the grid. Back with the 4th row, this is Scott Redding, and Loris Baz completes that row number 4. Redding, of course, after a 9th place finish in the Superpole session, lined up on the 3rd row of the grid, but lost his spot on row number 3 after dropping back to 11th in the Superpole race. We complete the top 12 on the grid with Loris Baz, just a single point to his name so far this weekend. Had a turn 8 crash in the Superpole race this morning. Opportunity to head back down to the grid then with Dave Goddard.
Yes, I've got Phil Murren with me, crew chief for Toprak Razgatlioglu. Phil, Toprak finally getting that all-important first win earlier on. That must be a massive boost to his confidence.
It's good to get the monkey off his back. We came close twice in Estoril, so to get it done here was good, yeah.
Great stuff. The team seeming fired up as well.
Yeah, he's ready for this one. It's going to be tough, the best.
Brilliant. That's all you can do. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Yes, cautious optimism, I think, but there is a dose of realism for everyone in the fact that we've seen Alvaro Bautista looking so strong so far this weekend. We continue on with our grid then, lining up on row number 5. It is Philipp Oertel. He's yet to finish a race this weekend on his comeback from a collarbone injury, retirement from race 1, and likewise from the Superpole race earlier on today. 13th on the grid, courtesy of his Superpole result yesterday morning.
Yeah, he's had a couple of good results in the free practice sessions up inside the top 5. You can see their career best or season best to 7th. So for Philip, if he's able to match that today, then it's actually a really good result for him. But we know the Ducati's going to be strong in these hot conditions, so maybe he's able to latch on to that 2nd group, but it's a big ask for him.
Safety car now moving away with 5 minutes to go until we get underway for this one. Philipp Oertel will be lining up alongside Roberto Tamburini and Kota Nozane on row number 5. Likes of Eugene Laverty, Hafiz Shireen and Tito Rabat behind them on row 6. Gabriele Riu, Luca Bernardi and Tati Mercado row 7. Ilya Mikhalczyk, Oliver Koenig and Alessandro Del Bianco rounding out your starters. We're one man down after we lost the services of Christophe Pensant earlier on in the weekend. Roberto Tamburini then starting from 14th position where he qualified in the session yesterday yesterday morning. Had a decent result, though, for him on his return from injury with 11th position in race 1.
Yeah, difficult morning for him as well, though. He didn't manage to get out in the morning warm-up session, but good to see that Tambu's been able to come back, get himself in the 5th row of the grid. It's a really good one-lap effort in qualifying.
Good to see Kota Nazane back out on the circuit as well after he crashed at turn 8 in the Superpole race. Mixed weekend for him. Some encouraging signs at moments, but still looking for a top 10 finish.
Yeah, and Nozan is under pressure as well. Yamaha have said for the first time that they know that they need to really evaluate what's going to happen at GRT next year for him, so he needs some good results.
And I don't think it's only Kota Nazane at GRT who'll be looked at in the coming weeks. We have got 4 weeks off now, 4 weekends off, I should say, before we go racing in Donington Park. Eugene Laverty, Hafiz Shireen and Tito Rabat then on row number 6. Laverty with a 13th position finish in race 1, got up to 12th in the Superpole race, but obviously that wasn't enough to improve his grid position. He qualified 17th, gains 1 place in the absence of Christophe Pinson. We're otherwise all correct and present. 24 riders on the grid for race 2 of this 2022 Pirelli Emilia-Romagna round.